Hi guys, we're going to take a look at Andreas Kali. He's from Denmark, and as you may know, that I'm a big fan of traces. Got some of my traces up here now. I think traces are more important than positions. I think we're going to talk about positions as well, though. When you make your motions, as you should, if you go through your traces as we hope you do, your position should show up. I'm a big fan that your arm should hang and your wrist should be free and your elbow should stay together. And it should look like you're look quite rigid, but you won't be. And you should look very soft. Should be very soft, but not necessarily look very soft. I think when you make the motion, it looks soft. When you start at address, it doesn't. Now let's take a look at address here. One of the things that Andreas does is he's way behind the ball, and that's really good. And as a consequence, he moves his head to the left in the backstroke. I haven't seen this move too much. Mr. Hogan's head movement is it goes back about 4 inches. It stays about where it is and goes down and goes through. And then what Andreas does, let's take a look at what he does. It's kind of interesting. It's got a really nice travel to it. I like it. One of the things about when I first learned about traces, one of the things that happens when you have enough frames, and we don't have enough frames on when we get in the bigger traces, we don't have enough frames. This little trace, it has a great flow. It has a great arc. Body moves in spirals, diagonals, and arcs. There's not a single joint in the body. It goes in a straight line. And so you see some beautiful curves when you see the arcs and you see the traces, and you can see his head. Has a nice arc to it as well, and one of the things the arc does is it gives it the ability to move more smoothly. Now let's look at the head from the side. It's kind of an interesting look. Now you can't see this arc from the front as well, from the top as well. But you can kind of have an appreciation to that same pattern. It goes up and goes through. Now let's take a look at the right elbow. And let's take a look at Mr. Hogan's right elbow. Now you can see here, Hogan stays lower longer, and one of the things that Hogan has is he had extraordinarily long upper arms, the humerus. He had. Apparently, the rumor has it that you almost never see a picture of him with his arms hanging at his side because he felt self-conscious about how long his arms were, so he always had his arms bent, or often he was smoking a cigarette with his arm bent. But you never see him with his arms straight down at his side. And so one of the things that does is it gives him it gives him a great lever. It gives him a great lever without lifting. And you can see that Mr. Hogan's elbow is slightly lower. Now that's probably because of if you had short arms like I did, I think you'd see him a lot higher. But let's take a look at what can you see? Do that again. And Blobman, what you can see when I don't have Blobman here with us today, but if you take away his forearm, and it's just amazing how straight down his arm is at the top, and when it gets to the top and it's straight down, it just looks as though there's just no lift. And one of the things we see from Andreas is that we see that he comes to the inside a bit. And when he comes to the inside, then he gets about here and he's a little inside, and he probably has to lift it up a little bit. And then one of the things he does so well, is so impressive, is this position right here. We just think that's right on the money. Let's take a look at his hand trace from the side. And one of the things we see, how impressive it is. One of the things we saw Mr. Hogan, Mr. Nicholas, he came through the same pixel on the other side as he does going back, and you can see that the Andreas does that as well. And so I would say that whatever position he might get into that's bad, he's so good coming into the ball that I'll bet he's very successful. I would think he'd be very consistent. That's a remarkable. If you can see the line going back, the line coming down and the line releasing past the body, it's almost identical lines. That's very impressive. And this really, and I want to say that again, is that this downstroke spot, that's just almost right at the ball, right in the middle of his back. That's kind of, we'd love to see that. That's great. Now let's look at the left shoulder from the front view, and it's one of the things that that's one of the very similar spots that he has with Mr. Hogan. Let's take a look what that looks like. I think one of the places I'd like to one of the things I've changed in my thinking is Mr. Kali and told us that we want to get to a position we call follow through, and that's with a position where both arms are straight. And so I endeavored a great portion of my golfing life to, after I started working on the golfing machine and having the advantage of having Mr. Kali and Mr. Doyle. That just seems unfair to have those two guys on your side. They were so bright and worked so hard, and it's so impressive what they did. But I tried so hard to get both arms straight, and then what I did was I'd use my right arm in an effort to go to both arms straight. And now I've changed my thinking in the sense that I'd love to get my right arm straight, but I don't want to do anything whatsoever to try and straighten my right arm. As a thrower, when I was a kid, my right arm straightened. Now, did I ever think about trying to straighten my right arm? No, I didn't. But if you didn't straighten your right arm, you wouldn't be much of a thrower. And you see any pitcher, any thrower, they always straighten their arm, and they're really good at it. And the reason it straightened was because their arm was hanging, and because they work so hard. Now let's look at the hand trace here. Now see, here's where I apologize. If we had more frames, this would be a beautiful arc. But I'm only working here with, so I could get my traces more quickly. I'm doing 35 frames. And what we have with the new camera is 300 frames a second. You can easily get nearly 600. You certainly can get 450 frames. Now with 450 frames, this is very smooth. It would be very blended. Now one of the places that let's take a look at this position here. See, that's a very good impact. Now again, I'd like to see his right arm a little more bent, and what I'd like to see is in the next frame, I'd like to see it bent. Let's see how our guys look here. Now you can see here, Mr. Hogan in both these frames is substantially bent. Mr. Hogan was 135 to 133 degrees bent at impact. And in the next 90th of a second, because we used that footage from the Hogan to Snead match, it was 90 frames a second. It's amazing that they had 90 frames a second in 1964 on television, but they did. And he was 135 degrees bent at impact. 133 degrees bent at impact and 135 degrees bent at the next frame. Now that's just 2 degrees of straightening. Whereas you can see Kali here, Andreas, he's straight, and that's the modern look. There's some awfully good players that are almost dead straight at impact. Now, one of the things that happens the instant your right arm straightens and your right wrist bends. And I'm trying to do everything I can. I don't want to do anything to keep my arm bent actively. I don't want to restrict it. I want to keep it as soft as I can. I never tried to straighten my arm. That's the difference between a center fielder and a shot putter. Can you imagine trying to put a ball, shot put a ball instead of throwing it? When I was 11 years old, we had this field day, and we had a shot put event. So we were using a 6-pound shot, and everybody was doing what they were supposed to do. They were hopping and turning and twisting and then shoving their arm straight. And I just thought that was the silliest thing I'd ever seen. So I just took this thing and threw it. And I threw it 15 feet or 20 feet past anybody, but I come to find out that wasn't legal. Now, I did straighten my arm, but I didn't push it straight. Let's take a look at the full pattern here from the side, from the front view. Let's go to, okay. Now, I like how he stands up at the end. I like how he has great balance. I love that. I mean, this is, Bubba came out with an article, How to Hit It Farther, and one of the things he said is don't worry about balance. I guess because he doesn't have to worry about balance because he's so gifted, he thinks that's a good thing to teach. And I think maybe if you get people thinking about not having balance, we'll be busier. But I think that effective motion stays in balance, and the better your balance is, the more effective you are, and the more effective you are, the more balanced you are. I think that if you stand up on your left hip socket and straighten up like we see how he stands up, he's nice and bent. Right through here, nice and bent. And then his left leg straightens. Now see, it doesn't snap straight. Now you look at his left foot here. Really flat when he hits it. It's starting to roll, and then it pulls off. And I would say, in addition to the fact that that's tougher to keep your balance on a mat, and I'm sure it looks like to me like he has soft spikes on a mat. And if you get a hard mat with soft spikes, you might as well be on, essentially on ice. And I'll bet you they're in Denmark. They have pretty hard mats, but I would. One of the things that Mr. Hogan did, rumor has it, is that he used his toes to grab the ground. And they say, rumor had it that he would tear out his insoles with his shoes, and then he would grab it like a panther. And see, when you go through here, interesting thing is that as you grab, if you were to grab right now, or if you were to grab just a little bit sooner, what that does is it starts to straighten your leg. It optimizes the travel of the work of your hip to your heel, and therefore to your hip. And when you get on your heel, you turn best on your heels. I want to say that Andreas has a good golf swing, and I just think his position coming into the ball at the downstroke, that's just so good. And he's pretty conserved. I like that. And I think I'd soften him up a bit. But he has such a great start, and there's no doubt he's going to get better, because I think our information is getting better all the time with the advent of the K-Vest and the 4D swing. The 4D swing that looks to be a very impressive group in Finland, and I think they might be steering us in the direction with information that'll be useful for all of us. And I wish you guys a happy holidays, and thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.